Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to week 2 of e-learning. I'm sure this is a lot of fun for you. Um, Great job last week in turning in your blackout poems. I got a lot of your concrete poems, and you guys are doing just such a fantastic job with all of it. I'm really proud of you guys. It's not easy to learn virtually. It's not easy even for college kids who do this regularly. So, um, really great job so far. Uh, All right, so just before we get started on our lesson today about free verse poetry, I just want to give you a couple reminders. So, today, if you haven't finished yet, your limerick poem is due. So one thing that the teachers were talking about is that everyone would kind of like to have um, the same time to turn things in. They felt like it would be easier for you. So let's just like make everything due starting now. If it's due that day, it'll have to be due at 3:35 p.m., like the end of the school day. And then I know that's what the rest of the team kind of decided, so whatever is due on that day is due at 3:35 p.m. If you have any questions about that, or if you have something going on where that's not going to work really well for you, just email me, let me know. I'm trying to be really flexible with all of this. Also, remember to, I think some people are forgetting, and that's okay. But if you could just go on and update your online reading record. Remember, I put everything online for this month in March. If you look through Google Classroom, you'll be able to find it. But just update that reading record. Also, great job last week with your responses to your reading response. You're doing a reading response in Padlet. I know that was a new platform. We haven't really used it for reading responses yet, but they were really fun to read, and hopefully it was fun getting responses from your classmates. So we're going to do the same thing this week. I'll post a Padlet for this week, and then you'll also get to post your reading responses. One thing I suggest doing is writing the response in a Google Doc first, and then copying and pasting it and putting it into Padlet, because I know someone had an issue with it deleting before they were able to post it or something like that. It won't save until it's like posted in Padlet, so you might lose your writing. So it might be better to copy and paste if you'd like to do that. Also, this week, I was thinking we could change it up and make it a little bit more fun by uploading a selfie with your book. And it'll just be fun to see you and to see the cover of the book you're reading. If you don't feel comfortable with putting your face on there, you can just put a cover of your book. So I'll show that in the Padlet. And then one last thing is now on the Team Tuskegee webpage, which I will provide a link to in Google Classroom, there is now going to be an overview of all your assignments for each class on a spreadsheet. I know it's like super overwhelming, Google Classroom, so hopefully this will help you keep track of when everything is due. And so each week, each of your teachers will put their assignments in and when they're due. Um, so you can just check and see what's due for that day. Okay, so moving on. Today's goals. So today, oops, the S is a little messed up. Today's goals, we are going to define and understand what compromises a free verse poem. So free verse is really fun. There's not a lot of rules to it, and it's a great way to start off poetry since there aren't a lot of rules, and it just asks you to be creative. I'm going to show you some examples of free verse poetry using this book, House Arrest. And the reason I chose House Arrest is because I feel like it's perfect for our situation right now. It's actually about a boy who is stuck at home because he got in trouble with the law, but he can't leave his house. And he writes kind of in a free verse poetry. Um, he writes like in free verse poetry about being stuck at home. So I thought this would be like a great, we could really connect to that right now. The other thing I was going to say about the book, it is written by Kay Holt, who came and visited Haven. She actually talked to the sixth graders this year when all the authors came, so that's kind of cool too. We're going to be using this read aloud throughout this unit now, so we'll read from it every so often. Okay, moving on from goals. So, free verse poetry is basically just unrhymed lines having no fixed or metrical pattern. Some forms of free verse split phrases and words between lines, and you can have punctuation in it, but you don't have to. But the main object of free verse is to use lots of colorful words, punctuation, and thinking about like where your words are placed to convey meaning to the reader. Free verse is important to your writing because it helps you develop creativity without having to think so much about um, your sentences, your words. It kind of just lets you express yourself in short, concise thoughts. Here's some figurative language used in free verse. So there's assonance, alliteration, imagery, onomatopoeia, and anaphora. Those are ones that are like typically used. I always say that word wrong. It's anaphora. Um, so basically, I think some of these I shared with you last week as some figurative language you could use, and then there's some new ones here as well. I'm going to go over those really quickly with you, but I'll also share this slideshow with you so you can look at it at your leisure. Assonance is when you repeat the vowel sound. For example, the cat ran after the alligator past the pastry shop and the alleyway. That's in that picture there. So that short A sound is repeated. And what that does is it just kind of brings a mood, rhythm, tone to the text. A lot of writers use it. You might not always even realize they're using it, but you see it a lot in poetry. Alliteration is the next one. This is where you repeat the consonant. This is a little bit more, you probably have heard of this before, where it's kind of like a tongue twister. So it can be a tongue twister, but it's not always. So, like if you think of the Peter Piper picked a pickle, I can't even say it. That whole tongue twister, that's one of them. Or she sells seashells by the seashore, that's another one. Some ones that might actually be used in poetry that aren't necessarily um, tongue twisters. If you look at the second example, from where the sidewalk ends, this is it's from his Shel Silverstein's book. We shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where. So you can see there's like that W repeated, and it brings that rhythmical, lyrical sound to the poetry. And next is onomatopoeia. You've probably heard of this before. This is where you just use words such as buzz or bang, and it'll imitate the sounds that you hear from objects. So, for example, buzz, sizzle, pop, all of those. And the reason we use it is because it really increases like the imagination, because you like almost feel it in the poem. And it helps you really understand what the reader's saying without having to use a bunch of different words to describe it. Imagery is when we use like figurative language to represent, um, like using all the different um, senses. So vision, hearing, smelling, taste, touch. So those five senses. And they use it because it helps create a vivid picture in our minds. And then the last one, anaphora. This one is when the author repeats the beginning of, you see this a lot. They repeat the beginning of a phrase, or they repeat a sentence over and over again. So one of the most popular that I always refer to is the "I Have a Dream" speech by Martin Luther King. Here's another one. Mom, we will not run. We will not scream. We will not be late. As you can see, there's a lot of we will nots. Is it too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning? And that's from Romeo and Juliet. You see that too repeated over and over. They use it, readers, to add emphasis on an element, and it also adds that rhythm and cadence piece. Okay, so you might see some of these when we read House Arrest. We're just going to listen to a little bit of House Arrest today, probably a few minutes, and then hopefully that'll inspire some writing from you. So what I did was I downloaded the Kindle version here. This is the first page. And let me just get my audio started. I'm going to have the author read it, or the narrator read it too.
This is Audible. Tantor Audio. House Arrest by K.A. Holt. Narrated by Alex Kidd. Winter. 91 hash marks. Week 1. Boys don't write in journals unless it's court-ordered. At least, that is what I've figured. I have nothing to say. I am not allowed to have nothing to say. Except on Tuesdays, when I go see Mrs. Bainbridge, who calls me Tim instead of Timothy. I sit on her squishy couch, my mouth sealed shut, my eyes burning holes in the leaves of all her plants. She says I can call her Maureen. But who would want to be called Maureen? Adjudicated delinquent. I had to look up how to spell that 3 times. I don't feel like a delinquent, and I don't know what adjudicated means, even after looking it up. Sounds like a kung fu movie. I adjudicated you in your face. Hi-ya! A whole year of this journal. Maybe I will write about the other people I see. Like Jose. Just being Jose. I will pretend his life is mine. Like, I can still go hang out in our street whenever I want. Magnolia Circle, where I've always lived. With the manhole cover that makes a perfect third base.
All right, so I'm going to stop it there. Let me get back to my slideshow really quick. All right, so today what you're going to do is you're going to write a poem modeled after house arrest. It shouldn't be too hard because we're all on house arrest right now. So maybe just think about your time this past week and how you're feeling. Your poem should be at least 10 lines long. Please number the lines and use at least 3 examples of figurative language. You can use any of the 5 mentioned today in your poem. When you're finished, you might want to revise. You could add imagery, think about adding figurative language, cut words, phrases that aren't necessary, reread, and think about the poem's theme or message. And then we'll share out. I have the poem from House Arrest up here for you to look at in case you want to refer back to it. And then I also wrote a poem myself that how I've been feeling, and now that we're going into week 2 on house arrest. So you can use either of those as kind of like mentor text to help you. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. You can email. I can also, if you'd like to talk to me, we can arrange a time to do like Google Meetup as well. So just let me know if that's something you'd like to do. I really miss all of you guys. Good luck with this. It's due not tonight, but not today, Monday, but Tuesday. Okay? So have a great weekend, or have a great week. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.